Where are you right now? Are you in the UK?
I'm in the UK. I'm in London, yeah.
You've always been based out of there, right?
I used to live in Los Angeles for like a few years.
Okay.
And I moved back here.
Got you. Did you move over to LA kind of when everything was first like blowing up for you?
I wanted to try it out just because I was traveling so much. I wanted to be kind of more based in the US, so it'd be a lot easier to kind of get around. But I then moved home to be closer to my family and my ex-girlfriend.
It's interesting. I mean, where do you, or I should say before all of coronavirus happened, where did you find yourself playing the most? Like, is the majority of your touring in the US or is it kind of everywhere?
Mostly North America. It's also Canada as well, and Europe as well. Europe has been very, very busy.
Have there been phases of it? Because I know a slight less amount of information about like the trance and progressive scene than I do about some others. And so I know that obviously it's like every scene has cycles, you know? Mm-hmm. So would you say like right now, 2019, 2020, pre-corona, how is the state of the trance scene in America from your eyes?
Blown up, man. It's been incredible. I just see every year it's just getting bigger and bigger. A lot more in demand. People are still discovering trance music. I think in the last 10 years alone, Anjunabeats has kind of really exploded. And I think being kind of like on the road with Anjunabeats for the last 10 years, I've just seen it kind of expand to people who have never heard of Anjunabeats or trance music or myself. So it's been a very nice and enjoyable ride, and I think it's only getting better and bigger.
Well, that's cool to hear, man. I like stories like that. And it's, you mentioned Anjunabeats, and I think that's kind of a cool part about your career as well, is that you've sort of found this family. It seems like pretty early on in your career that you've stuck with kind of the whole ride through, which I think in this day and age is sort of rare for people who do what we do. Yeah,
no, I've been with Anjunabeats since day one. And I've also stayed loyal to that kind of family, Does it feel like a family? Yeah, I think with the fan base for sure, definitely. With the fan base has just been super supportive, not just of Anjunabeats, but my solo career in general has just been, fan base has just exploded in the last 5-10 years, and I've only just seen like a kind of a massive rise of this. It's kind of almost like a music cult. It's been really incredible.
That's interesting. Can you attribute that to anything? Like, is there something that either you're doing differently or Anjuna as a collective is doing differently that, engenders that kind of connection with people?
I think they just become a lot more, everyone's been interacting with each other a lot more. The community has just been alive and kicking in shows, and people do a lot of gatherings. I tend to kind of gate crash my fan base's gatherings and just kind of just show up with unexpected, and they kind of they always get really stoked when I just show my face.
That's cool. Like, so like they'll be doing like a fan meetup or something, and you'll show up.
Fan meetup, and I'll just show up there, and I'll be like, "What's up?" And they're like, "What the?" So it's like it's really, really cool to engage with the fans. I've always been, and I always will, set an example to everyone else by staying at the shows until the last person has gone home. That for me is very, very important. That's something that I've always kind of, as a musician, I've always wanted to understand why a lot of DJs don't actually interact with their fans a lot more. And I've always said to myself that the more I, kind of explode, the better I'm going to be with my fans. I'm going to engage a lot more with my fans. So every show I stay until the last person goes home, and I will always make sure that I get a picture with everyone who wanted one. And when I was kind of going to trance shows, I used to be like, I want to pick.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, I think it's very important to connect to your fans and be as close as you can with your fans. Obviously I get completely spammed every day with thousands of messages, or my Instagram's just exploded. I've got over 40,000 emails of demos, people sending me demos, and eventually I will open a label, but I just can't respond to everyone. You know, it's very, very difficult, but I do try in person, especially in the shows. So,
and people remember that, man.
Yeah, of course. It's very important. I think it's very important because it's something I wanted to do as well. You know, like I wanted to engage with the DJs that I liked back in the day. And I used to be like,
me too, man. Yeah. When I was like 15, 16, I was like a metalhead kid growing up, but I was that kid who would like wait outside the tour bus after the show just to like catch a glimpse or just to, you know, get an autograph or say hi. And, you know, if I put myself back in those shoes, that meant, it's silly now, but it's like that meant everything to me at the time.
Oh, yeah. It's very important.
Absolutely, man. And so, you know, coming up in the UK for you, I have this thing about dance music in the UK where, and I was just talking to somebody about this, where I think people growing up in the UK, it's almost like dance music is just in your blood. I don't know if you agree, but there's something about, maybe it's just the fact that there's like BBC Radio 1 and, you know, dance music is just a bigger part of mainstream culture there. But, you know, what was your experience coming up? What was your relationship to dance music and just to music in general? Like, were you a musical kid?
My brothers were DJs, and one of them still is. So when I was a kid, I was always fascinated by the production side, whereas they were fascinated with the DJing side. So my brother would come home with a new vinyl. He'd run inside, super excited, said, "Oh, I've been to Tower Records. Just got this amazing vinyl. You have to hear it." And I'd be like, "Go on, play it." And it would always be like some kind of like old school progressive house. And then he'd bring some trance records home and I'd be like, "What is that? You know, what?" And then it'd be like Paul Van Dyke or, you know, all the classics, Ferry. And, you know, when A&B started coming on the scene, I was just like, who are these guys? They're like creating like all this emotional music. And I loved it. I love the fact that with trance music, it's a journey of emotion. And it's not just a banging groove. It's takes you on some epic chords and melodies. And that's what really kind of connected me to the music. And I said to myself, I need to produce this shit. I need to make music.
How old were you when you were thinking that?
9.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I started producing when I was 9 years old. My brother came home with his floppy disk. And on the floppy disk, he's like, "I got this new music software from my friend." And I was like, "What do you mean it's music software? Like, you can create music?" And I was just like, "Well," and I looked at it. And it was just literally like code going down.
Yeah. There's a name for that kind of...
tracker.
Yeah, tracker, yeah.
So my brother was messing around with it. And I saw him like playing on the keyboard, like going... And I was just like, "You just made a beat. How did you do that?" So I kind of looked at what he was doing and was playing around with that. And then my brother came up with... Then I was messing around with that, wasn't that great. And then my brother came home with a CD drive because it's CD drive.
Right. Yeah.
He's like, "I've got this music program," and he got it off a magazine. And I was like, "What's it called?" "Dance EJ." And I was like, right, I need to play with this. And everyone was making pretty much the same loop with the software, with the same sounds. And it sounded really good. And I was like, I need to get this, you know, I need to see what else is upcoming. And then I got a program called Cakewalk when I was probably about 11 or 12.
Oh yeah, sure.
And I was with Cakewalk until like 5 years ago.
Oh really? Is that recent?
Yeah. And they kind of at one point went down. And I was like, right, I'm jumping ship. So I went to move to Logic. And then from Logic, I moved to Ableton, back to Logic, Ableton. I'm just kind of like fighting between which sounds better.
Oh, that's interesting. Is it about the sonic quality for you, not so much the workflow?
I think there's something really magical about Logic, which I can't get my head around. It's like the summons engine behind it. There's something about the engine which just makes everything sound, you know, they've been making music for 27 years. These programs have been around. I mean, Ableton hasn't been around for that long.
Right.
But sonically, you can go a lot bigger with Ableton. You can, you know, every channel has like a massive range of sound. And with Logic, it's kind of like it tames you, you know, you're very limited to what you sound like in Logic. And I find that it's a lot easier to clip and to distort your sounds within Logic. And in Ableton, you have a lot more range sonically. You can like for people who are listening who don't know what music production is, all tracks are made within different layers. It's kind of like drawing paper. It's tracing paper.
Exactly.
You trace more sounds on top and top and top until you eventually get to a massive track, as you call a record. But with Ableton, every layer, as such, every channel, you can turn up the volume so high that it doesn't clip. And I think that's the problem. The problem is that there's no limit. And because you don't know where to kind of be on the mixer, you don't know how much to go and how much to crank. And I find that whenever you import audio sounds into Ableton, they tend to sound a bit more plastic than Logic. There's,
That's really
if you put a kick and a snare in Logic, and they say if you bounce the same shit, the same exact sound in Logic and Ableton, they sound the same. I don't think they do. I think there's something really different. It's kind of like Logic just sounds a little bit quieter and more lush, whereas with Ableton, it just sounds really loud.
I've heard people make that comparison before and talking about how the engines are different. Somebody was just arguing online about FL Studio as well, and saying there was something about the limiting or the clipping there that, that's why it was perfect, why every hip hop producer was using it for that. And it's interesting for me, man, it's always just been about the workflow. Ableton always intuitively made so much more sense to me, the way it was laid out and the workflow, as opposed to Logic, which I feel has a really rough learning curve at the start. But for you,
a lot, comparing, and I'm coming back from Cakewalk, for example.
Well, right.
Cakewalk was a nightmare to copy and paste, automation and copy and paste different beats from one section to the other. Ableton is it makes so much sense. Yeah. And there's a reason why people look at it and they're like, ugh, it looks disgusting. There's a reason why it looks so flat. It's because you can actually stare at the screen for hours. Where I found with Logic, after a while, it was just a bit, even though it looks nicer, after a while, it's tiresome. It really is. I don't know if it's me struggling with the controls or whatever, but I think with Ableton, it just makes so much sense. It's all in little bricks, and it's kind of like Lego, It's very Lego. I find that Ableton is Lego and Logic is Lego Technics.
Ooh, there we go. That's a great comparison. Yeah. No, Ableton kind of looks like putting together a puzzle, which is, I think you're right. It's a little bit more of a simplistic view, but I don't mean that in a negative way.
No, of course, it's definitely, and I've also written a massive email to Ableton guys over there saying that, look, love the software. It's fantastic, but there's something about the engine on Logic, which is sounding just a little bit more saturated. There's more saturation and a lot more warmth. So that's something that I'm kind of baffled about, and I keep bouncing back and forth between Logic and Ableton to try and discover what is going on there. Maybe it's the dynamics. I don't know.
That's really interesting. So is that part of the fun for you? Kind of digging into the really nitty gritty details, perfecting the sound.
I'm a perfectionist, especially with my tracks. Everything that I construct has to be perfected. Every layer, every sound, everything has need to be detailed as possible.
So how does that work then for you? Because obviously nothing can be perfect, right? So if you're writing a song, are you the kind of person who will just sort of tweak each tiny element unto infinity? How do you know when to walk away?
There's no limit, like you said, you can always play with a certain sound, and there's no right or wrong. There's always a way of adjusting and perfecting that sound, and then you will come the next day and you're like, okay, it's not perfect. There's no, it's perfect as it is. I'm going to go. Even if it's perfect, I might mess it around, and then I have to go back to a save that I've already done. Because
I've done that.
You just end up effing things up. There's no thing is, I know where I'm going with my sound. That's the thing. I know what I'm doing. I've managed to kind of master my craft, as you'd say. But it's about experimenting to find the new way. That is the problem. It's the problem of every artist, which is discovering something new. There's a lot of artists who are doing the same. I don't know what my sound is. People say, "Oh, it's such a Bluestone record," and I'm like, what's a Bluestone record, you know?
Right.
But I hear artists who are using the exact same sounds, the same kick drums, the same snares, and the same stuff, and it sounds. I just instantly push next because I've heard it before.
Sure.
You know, obviously everyone has their own preferred selected sound choice of sounds that you enjoy and love, and you still try and put in every project. But when it's all the same, you're just like, it's just a copy and paste record with a different melody and a different beat.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I think you make a good point that there's a difference between keeping the same perspective on all the work you put out. And maybe that's why somebody can hear a record you made and say, oh, that's a Bluestone record, because, you know, they're hearing your take on it. They're hearing the way you see the world and the way you see music. But that's different to me than just sort of using the same sonic palette every time, which is much less creative, right? And like that's sort of just a paint by numbers, like follow instructions kind of scenario. And I think I don't know if like the average listener can tell when someone's doing that, but I think the average listener can tell when someone has sort of checked out of that creative space. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a lot of artists who sound like other artists.
Yes.
And you can hear that a lot. And whereas I just try and really stay away from that. You know, there's a way of recycling other music in a very clever way, you know, but taking chords which already exist and just kind of like snowing them over with other melodies and stuff is just, you know, you've heard it before. So your ear is instantly going to be like, oh, I've heard this, you know, why should I listen to the same chords or the same melody that I've already heard?
Right.
It just sounds like the same kind of something that your brain's used to it. You know what I mean? And because it's used to it, you're instantly getting bored. So it's about finding other ways, you know, even if you do find chords which you think are really effective, is there a way that you can engage the ear by doing an element which will make you stay focused to a point where you don't want to click skip and you don't want to click next. You just want to listen to the detail of what what the artist is trying to achieve.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I never thought of it exactly like this, but I think you're totally right that if you're just copying what's already been done, people can identify that. I don't think that's exciting to people. But if you're able to take a common idea and just flip it a little bit, or just add something, or just change it enough so that it's familiar but surprising, that I think is actually a really effective way to write a song.
Yeah.
Because you access like the part of the brain where somebody feels familiar to the piece of music you just gave them because they recognize some elements.
Of course.
But then there's something surprising that they weren't expecting. Yeah, I like that idea a lot, man. Let's talk about you and your early productions. If you started at 9 and went on from there, like what were those really early productions that you were making? What did they sound like?
I was doing a lot of experimental stuff. I was doing a lot of dubstep. I was doing a lot of house music. I used to go under the name of Bluestone.
Right. And just return to that, right?
Sorry?
You just returned to that Bluestone alias as well? Or,
no,
I'm thinking of Stone Blue.
Yeah. So Stone Blue is kind of like my uplifting project, because I've had a lot of people say to me, hey, bro, your music's trance, but it's not uplifting trance. You know, it'd be cool if you do uplifting trance.
Which is so specific.
I've grown up on trance music, full stop. Uplifting trance was my shit, still is, you know, but the stuff that I listen to on Beatport Trance Top 10, I'm just like, really? You know what I mean? Like I've lost, I really recently as well, Beatport for me has gone like a real, it's a real fucking, sorry. A real.
You're welcome to swear, and I agree with you.
It's a real disappointment. You know, I think Beatport have really effed up in just the last 2 years. I think all their stuff on there, and it's not just because of this music that they put in on the top 10. It's just everything that they're doing with their website is just, they used to have like Beatport sounds,
right?
Which I thought was so cool that you could have people up like load sample CDs on there and stuff. And now they just got bought out by shit, what are they called? They've got this app called Loopcloud or something.
Oh, Loopcloud, yeah, right.
Yeah, I don't really get it. I don't. I really like the chart with the fact that you could just download a whole sample CD rather than just go and mess around with this Loopcloud program. It's crashed for me too many times to a point I'm just like, oh, I can't be bothered.
I have some friends who really like Loopcloud. I haven't gotten into it too much. I mean, the thing is, overall, I feel like, I guess this is getting into like an industry talk, but it's like Splice is such a giant that I think...
They're following this, you know, and the company behind Loopcloud actually have got a real good thing going on. And I can see why they're doing this. They obviously want to jump on the Splice kind of, you know, world. The concept of Loopcloud is cool, but there was no need to destroy a whole part of Beatport's website that I truly loved.
Right.
You know, I thought that part of the website, and they're like, they don't really care about their social media. The social media team on Beatport are terrible. They're really, really like, I've told them, yo, what's going on with the Beatport sounds? Nothing, no reply. And it's like, you guys can just, you know. So I was also that, like, the music on the top 10 on Beatport, especially with the uplifting stuff, there's only like, I can only name a few artists who I think are really effective, and I'm not going to give names, but I think in the old uplifting side of trance stuff, it just sounds like a copy and paste record. Like it sounds like a template which has been done, and people are sending off their tracks to be stemmed by the same person who's mixing all of their records. And I think it's become a complete block.
Yeah.
Like a music block. And I don't think that uplifting trance music is as good as it was in the 2000s, early 2000s and early 90s. And that's why Stone Blue's been created, because I'm bringing that shit back and I'm going to do it properly. And I don't think that many people are doing it. There's a few artists who I really, really enjoy listening to their stuff.
While you were saying all of that, what I was thinking is that it's hard to evolve, right? Like whether we're talking about Beatport, whether we're talking about a genre of music, it's like, you know, something will have its moment, whether it's Beatport being like the king of the music websites, or whether it's, you know, say uplifting trance, like being the dominant sound of a particular era. It's hard to evolve. I think, you know, especially when you've had some success, sort of charting that next step can be risky, and not everyone makes the right decisions. And then we get into these kind of situations we're talking about, right? Where it's like, oh, it used to be so good, but now I don't know what they're doing. And I wanted to bring it back to you and talk about your musical evolution. You know, if we go back to, you know, you mentioned you were experimenting with a bunch of different styles and trying out a bunch of different genres. Was there kind of like a light bulb moment for you where either, you know, you saw the potential for like, oh, I could really take this to the next level. This could be like a real, maybe a career, maybe something I could do with my life? Or was it more kind of a gradual evolution for you?
I think it was gradual for sure. You know, I think when I was experimenting back in the day, you know, I was doing, like I said, I was doing a lot of stuff. I was also ghost producing for many different music managers, let's say.
Oh, interesting.
I kind of went through the real kind of struggle of hardship. It was very, very, very hard because people were using me back in the day to produce for them and stuff that I didn't even want to produce. You know,
how did you get into doing that?
I just sent off my demos and people got back to me. But I was doing some stuff for one of my old music managers was such a cunt, you know, and he really had me do stuff for him without no choice. Until this day, if I saw him in the street, I'll literally walk past him and give him the finger. And he'll be like, "Oh, you're doing so well, Ilan. Well done." It's like, yeah, see you later, mate.
Yeah, no thanks to you.
Yeah. And I've had another CUNT old music manager who's come up to me. He's like, "Do you remember back in the day I helped you out with this and that? Any chance you can do me a favor?" And I'm like, "Nah."
Yeah, there's always those, man.
So you have a lot of people who think that you owe them a lot. And you remember those people who did nothing for you and kind of were an embarrassment to your career.
Oh yeah, I think every artist who's been doing this long enough has a little list in the back of their mind, you know?
Yeah, you know, and if it wasn't for that experience, you know, at the end of the day, I can't just hate because it's all learning curve. And it's made me who I am today. It's made me a lot tougher in the music world. I feel also that I can, I make better music because of the experience of working with vocalists in the past. And, you know, all a learning curve.
And maybe even, I don't know if you would agree, but maybe the experience of, making music for somebody else's project, for somebody else's vision. I mean, that's sort of just like sharpening your swords, right? Even if
100%. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It definitely made my weapons sharper.
When you were sending this music out to these managers, did you send it out intending to, sort of be discovered and be like, this is my music, this is what I do, and then they flipped it?
I just always wanted to be a music producer.
So always. You didn't really care if you were the front person or not.
I didn't actually want to be the front person. I never thought of myself as the DJ. I was always very scared to touch the decks, if I'm honest.
Oh, why was that?
I think due to the fact that my brothers were always on it. And like, I was always not scared of my brothers, but I always thought that if I'm going to try and DJ, they're going to kind of like either laugh or, like you can't,
Of course.
And I found that I connected a lot more to the production stuff. And then when I picked up the decks, I had Tony from Above and Beyond, funnily enough, turn around to me and say, you see your tractor controller? Throw it in the bin. Because I literally used to tour all around Asia with a massive backpack with an S2 controller in it. And he used to weigh a ton. And he looked at me once and he said to me, you got to throw that in the bin. And I did. I didn't throw it in the bin, but I just threw it in I gave it to my brother actually as a present. He said to me, you'll find it a lot easier to go around the world with some USB sticks and record box and all that. And I was like, he's so right. So Above and Beyond gave me their personal decks.
Oh, wow.
To practice at home with for a month. And within a month, I learned how to use the decks. And I started touring, and it was very scary for me at first to go to a club with just USBs. And to mix was probably something that took me a little while to pick up. But when I got it, I was so happy.
Yeah, man. That's one of those funny moments. I had a similar experience because, I started DJing, it was vinyl. And then from vinyl, it was, actual CDs in CDJs. And then then programs like Serato and that sort of thing. And yeah, man, losing all of those safety nets and just going to the USBs, it's a scary moment. But then it's so funny because, of course, that's what every kid who starts now is starting with. And
it's like a little USB key.
Basically, yeah. It just made me feel like an old man after a while where I was just like, this is silly, man. I got to get with the times.
Yeah, for sure.
And so we've kind of talked about two time periods, like the really early times, and then we've referenced a couple times, touring with Above and Beyond and these bigger, crazier shows. I think there's a time period in between those, and I'm curious about that when you were sort of, you did the Ghost production thing. How did you break out of that, first of all?
I think there was one instance where I did a track with a very old school kind of producer, and basically that kind of opened the door. I actually got connected with Mal, who I do a lot of collabs with, through MySpace from back in the day. And Mal really liked some of my trance music, and he said to me, yo, you should send this out. And I was like, really? You reckon they'll like it? And he's like, yeah, of course. And before that, actually, I used to send stuff to Paul Van Dyk's record label. And back in the day, I used to send it to one of his A&R girls. And she always used to kind of say to me, it's just not good enough. It's just not good enough. Until this day, I know it was better than what was coming out then.
Right.
And I knew that something's not right. Like, am I not right? Am I deluded? Am I thinking to myself, my music's not great? But I listen back to those records and I'm like, fuck, it's really effing good. To a point where I'm actually redoing these records again.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So, I sent off my demos back then to Vandit, and I was like, I wasn't getting anywhere. And then I connected with Mar, and I was like, yo, what do you think of these? He said they're great. You should definitely send them to Anjunabeats. So I did. And then till this day, my manager, who's my current manager, was my A&R from then. He said, yo, Above and Beyond are going to love this. And then one day I got a phone call from Jono saying, hi, mate, nice to meet you. I really like your Cyanide track. What does the words, lyrics mean on the record? I was like, oh, then nothing. He's like, well, it's because it's Arabic. I was like, no, it's not. It's gibberish. It's my mate talking. We just, just chopped it up, reversed a few of the lyrics, and it sounds like an Arabian prayer. And there is a YouTube video about how someone says it's from the Quran and it means something in Arabic, and it's been translated into English. Absolute bull.
Oh, that's hilarious. You got conspiracy theorists.
Yeah. So you got conspiracy theorists saying, no, it's this sentence from this line over here. And it's like, that was not like, oh. And it's like someone translated my track Sinai into gibberish,
right?
Like from gibberish into English. And it's like, dude, what is this kid on? You know what I'm saying?
That's my whole thing. This is a total tangent, but that's my whole thing about conspiracy theories in general is I think most conspiracy theories, it's just a way that some people have fun. It's just like putting a puzzle together or playing a game because the theory is always so much more complex than the actual fact, right?
Like Chinese whispers. Right?
What is that?
You don't know the game Chinese whispers?
No.
It's when someone whispers something into you say a word, right? You think of a word.
I know this game. I know it under a different name.
Yeah. And then you say it into your friend's ear, and then that friend sends it to another friend's ear, and then another friend's ear, and then to 10 people. And then at the end, you hear a different word.
Exactly.
Which was originally said.
Yeah. We just called that telephone when I was a kid.
Okay. So at the end, you say, let's say I said telephone in someone's ear.
Right.
You'll end up coming back with like metronome.
Right.
You know what I mean? It doesn't have any. That's the thing with theories as well. Things get spoken about with different people that eventually just gets all muddled up, and all this and all these Facebook conspiracies and like the whole stuff with COVID and all this shit right now.
Oh my God, man.
For me, for us, my mum's just lost 4 of her close friends. My accountant's lost his father in the US. His mother. And it's just like, this is no fucking game. This is like,
dude, we could do a whole nother podcast about how angry that shit makes me.
Yeah. And it's like, people are not taking it seriously. And it's, all these, I see people going and people messaging me saying, Ilan, it's not true. It's theories. It's the 5G iPhone tower. I was like, dude, this shit happened exactly when 4G came out. And like all these like videos of birds falling out the sky and all this. I was like, leave me alone. That's why I stay away from all this. Let people think whatever they want to think.
I mean, that's the thing. We can't control anyone else. But yeah, I'm with you 100%, man. I mean, I have close friends who have lost dear people to them. And it's, the whole thing drives me nuts.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, even in the UK, I'll just say this and we'll move on. But, even in the UK, you look at like Boris Johnson, who was he was kind of one of those conspiracy people at the start, and then he got it. And now you see how the tone of what he's saying has changed so dramatically.
Yeah, of course.
The whole thing is nuts, man.
Yeah.
But shit, how did we start talking about this?
I don't know. It's probably me like changing subject somewhere. I always do that.
Well, I do it too. I started talking about conspiracy theories. That was my fault. But I think we were talking about, you linking up with Above and Beyond, sort of breaking out of the ghost producer thing. And so they were the ones who kind of first gave you that indication of like, oh no, you could do this on your own.
My career is literally all thanks to A&B, and that's why I owe them the world, and that's why I see them as, not only because I was a fan of Above and Beyond and still am, but it's just they really gave me my wings and they made me fly. For me to be able to do one of my first ever shows at Madison Square Gardens was a massive explosion for me in the world of music. I mean, that's
a 1 in a million.
That's on my resume. Man. I can put that on my resume. I played Madison Square Gardens, and that will never leave me. Till the day I can die happy now.
Oh yeah, man. And you're very few people can say that. And a lot of legendary people are in that group. And it's even crazier that, as you just said, that was like one of your first public shows with you being the front man, right?
Yeah, of course. I opened up the venue. It was crazy.
I mean, how was it even like just thinking of yourself as the front man after all this time doing ghost production, being behind the scenes? Was it something you were excited to do, or was there some anxiety there?
Obviously I was shitting myself. Who wouldn't be, especially knowing that it's being streamed to like millions of people around the world.
Yeah.
Had my parents there, had my ex-girlfriend of the time there, had my brother there, my close friends there. It was very nerve-wracking. It was very, very nerve-wracking. And I was on the tractor controller back then. So
right.
my computer went shut down. I'm like, oh God, you know what? I need to wait till it boots up.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I was very nervous, but I produced a lot of music for that show specifically. And it went off. And I'm happy that happened, because there's been a lot of memorable tracks which I did over there, which are going to stay with people forever, including myself. So yeah, I was very, very nervous, and it was probably my third or fourth DJ set, I'd say, maybe
That's
fifth.
So crazy.
Yeah, it was one of my first top 5 sets that I've ever DJ'd in my life, ever.
You're right.
So to say that I've DJ'd for the first time in Madison Square Gardens is really real truth. You know, that was one of my first shows with no idea what's going to happen, with looking at an ocean of people. It felt completely surreal. It felt like I was standing in front of a poster of loads of dots and people, because you stand up there, obviously you hear a crowd cheering, which seems surreal, but it looks like little dots.
Right.
And it's kind of like reminds me of that point when me and Andrew, we did a back-to-back set at Mexico. And before we went up on stage, we were crouched down behind the stage. And I could tell Bear was nervous. And I was actually quite confident on this one, until I saw like a helicopter hovering above us. And I was like, yo, Bear, what's with a helicopter? It's like, I don't know, bro. It's like, why is it so low? Like, what is that? And I asked the stage manager, I was like, helicopter, no comprendo. What's going on here? You know? He's like, oh, photographer for you. I was like, there's a helicopter in the sky taking videos of us? Like, really? And then I kind of like peeked my head over the crowd, and I see an ocean. And I'm talking about an ocean. I couldn't, have you ever seen that movie, the guy that does Bohemian Rhapsody? Queen?
Oh, sure.
So, towards the end, he looks out into the audience and you see just like an ocean of people.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. And I was like, yo, Bear, have you looked over yet? He's like, I don't want to look. And then when we came on, my adrenaline was so high, and so was Bear's, that we were like in autopilot, But at that moment in time, it was so surreal. Like, Madison Square Garden was massive. Don't get me wrong.
What was the event in Mexico?
EDC.
Oh, it was EDC Mexico.
Now, I played EDC before, and there's been massive crowds, but that because we were on the main stage over there.
Right.
And that main stage area was so big, was so massive, that I will never forget. And then I've already played that stage again.
Right.
And it's just like, I came back there with like, I can do this, and I'm going to play some brand new banging records, and I'm going to destroy everyone with this shit. So it was insane.
Well, that's cool, man. It's cool you're able to sort of rise to the occasion and be validated on that level sort of out of the gates. That's got to be an amazing feeling. I'm curious, like, what is it like starting there and then sort of after a while getting into the grind of sort of like the nightclub touring, like the...
I find that it's built my confidence, and don't get me wrong. I think I get nervous at every show just because I'm a perfectionist and I want to deliver a really incredible show for everyone to really enjoy and always do something a little bit different. And I think playing at these massive venues makes me appreciate the small ones, because obviously you can get more intimate with the crowds. And I like doing smaller shows because I can see people's reactions a lot better.
Yeah.
And see the person's face rather than just the dot, and being able to interact with the fans after the show and asking them what they thought and like which specific tracks they liked. I think that's very, very important for me.
Well, yeah, that's actually an interesting question is, if you started off on this massive stage and all of a sudden you're seeing people reacting to this music that you've been making for years and years, did the experience of getting into the grind of tours and playing these massive shows, did it change the way you thought about your own music, or did it change the way you wrote music, now seeing how it was intended?
Definitely influential to touring and just touring the world and being in a situation where I'm seeing different crowds and different cities and different landscapes and different sights and sounds really inspires me musically. Like when I toured in India, for example, like there was something very magical about that place that really affected the way I was producing certain sounds. But it definitely helped touring around the world because it gave me an insight into my craft, and I was constantly expanding my sounds. Influenced by, like if I'm sitting in a car from the airport, and like I normally sit in like these big Chevrolet American cars that you guys have,
yeah,
in the back, and there'd always be a cool driver like playing some cool music, and I'd be like, this really fits that moment and landscape. There'd be like a certain dude who I've never met before. He's like, yo, what up, bro? Yo, you smoke any weed? And I'm like, I used to, and he'd be like, very kind of America.
Yeah.
It's like America. And then you hear like a bit of hip hop in the background. And I'm like, this shit's dope. Like it really fits that when I'm looking out that window, that scene. I feel like I'm in a movie.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that really inspires me regardless of what shit's being played on the radio. Like even if I'm in like Spain, Ibiza, and I'm listening to the DJ play, sorry, not the DJ. The driver is a DJ.
Yeah. They're all DJs.
I'm listening to the guy playing like, Spanish, Espanol radio. And I'm just like, wow, just hearing the adverts and hearing that there's dance music on the radio is very inspiring. Same in Holland. I got driven from Holland to Germany in a chauffeur-driven car.
Oh, sure.
And I'm sitting in the back of this luxurious Mercedes. And the guy's just playing like some fucking amazing techno, and it's on radio,
right?
And it's like, this is daytime radio, right? This isn't satellite radio. This is crazy. Daytime radio with adverts in between. But the music on the day, it's not hip hop, it's not R&B, it's not Rihanna, it's just techno,
right?
And like you can hear like it's obviously I don't understand shit's going on. It's all in Dutch, but I'm like, wow, this is crazy. And then when you cross over into a different country, the radio stations change.
Yeah.
You're listening to German radio all of a sudden, and they're listening to dance music. And you're like, wow, this is so cool. And then that moment in time fits the landscape. And I'm looking out the window and I'm like, am I dreaming? Is this
right?
You're
right. It feels like a movie. You're absolutely right. Yeah. And that cinematic feeling, that feeling of almost being like detached from yourself. Maybe that's just the feeling of like purely being in the moment. But I like that idea of trying to take that feeling, that vibe, and apply it to your own work, right? And your own music.
Sure. It's very influential. It's very inspiring. And, hearing different artists from all genre do different stuff, listen, I'm not a massive fan of trap. But I completely understand from a production aspect why it does what it does.
Right.
When I'm at a show or when I'm at a concert, I can hear trap music in the background. Me personally, there's certain frequencies that make me go, like make me feel like, oh my God, I can't listen to that. But that's because I've got super sensitive hearing. As a music producer, I can always hear frequencies which have not been cut out in the mix, especially with the trap high and it's like it's kind of like a fluctuating, disturbing noise.
Right.
And I'm not hating.
No.
Is me as a music producer, hearing certain frequencies which have not been cut out on those high end drops, and I'm like, oh, and I'm like, earplugs in, what I mean? And I'm like, but I understand why it appeals to the crowd, and there's certain stuff that you can take from that sort of music, and it's influential. Still you're in a movie.
Oh, absolutely. So it's it's just a different kind of movie.
It's a different movie. It's like you're in a horror film.
Yeah, well, I mean, I will say, like I'm more in the bass music world than probably any other. And, a lot of that, this is not true for every producer, but, some of them, I think the really good ones, it's almost intentional, that harshness or doing it the wrong way.
Yes, it needs to be as dirty and out of the box as possible. Like, for example, Slander are killing it with their sound.
Right.
And I think Kill the Noise is an incredible producer.
One of my favorites.
Nightmare, and Excision, and even Rez, like I look at Rez and I'm like, what's she doing different to everyone else? She has a certain sound which matches her, and it's like that slow, crunchy. It's like crunchy. It sounds crunchy, and that's the addiction behind it.
Yeah. And again, man, it's like a movie, right? It's like cinematic. Like, she has a whole aesthetic to it.
Yeah. And I think, and it's funny because Rez came up to me one day, and I can't remember where it was. I think it was when I played in, I can't remember where, somewhere in Asia. She came up to me. He's like, "Do you remember me?" And I'm like, "No." It's like, "You gave me one of your drinks in, I can't remember. I think it was in Toronto or something." She's like, "You poured me a drink and you said, 'Here, have the bowl.'"
That's nice.
I can't remember, but she's like, "Thanks. I really like that drink." I was like, "Whew," and it's amazing, and it's the same with Ghastly as well. I think he came up to me at some point and said to me, "Do you remember me?" I was like, "No." He's like, "I was helping you out. I think it was an LA exchange in the club. I think he was one of the helpers over there or something. I can't remember."
Yeah, he used to work at one of those. I forget which one.
Yeah, and he was like, "You were super cool with me back then. I'll never forget that." And I was like, "Gee, this is a nice guy." And then we actually did a tour together, surprisingly. He does his trap, and I was doing my trance. And we were on tour in, I think it was... not where was it? It was Paraguay and Uruguay. Oh, wow. So we did some shows out there, and we were together on the same transport and doing stuff together. And he's a funny guy, man.
He's a really funny guy.
He's a real character, and he reminds me of kind of like the Dubs guys, And I did a tour with them in Australia when I did Stereosonic for the first time, and they put me in a private jet with him, Steve Aoki, and the Dubs brothers, and we were touring over there. And I was like, "Who are these guys?" And then I heard their track Tsunami, and I was like, "Dude, this is a fucking hit.
Right.
This is a banging record. This is a Big Room of Mecca. Mecca Big Room record."
Oh, I mean, that song defined a whole era of that genre,
Yeah, for sure. And I was like, wow, okay, I understand what's going on here. And when I was touring with them, I got to know them a bit better. And they were literally making myself, I was pissing myself. They were so funny. But it's also... they have stage presence, which is like no other. Yeah. They're true stage warriors. They know exactly how to get the crowd going. They throw them, like the way their stage presence is rock star.
Right.
It's kind of like a rock star from a rock band, but they're in the model day EDM world, and they've got it, So yeah, that was really, really cool to watch and to experience that. That's also, I felt like I was in a movie, just touring with all, with Steve Aoki was super cool.
Yeah, he's great, man. He was just on this show last week, and yeah, I love him, man. He's a super interesting guy.
Yeah, just really, really incredible what he's done, and what he's achieved. And, it's wicked to see everyone doing something different, but yeah, inspiring the EDM world.
Yeah, man. And I like those stories about, just people from different genres, hanging out together backstage. That it's always confusing to me how some people in certain genres will kind of keep it really separate. There's either some pretentiousness where they think what I'm doing is cooler than what somebody else is doing, or I don't understand what these people are doing, so I'm going to do my own thing. But to me, all of these little distinctions we make between genres and all that, that's fine. But at the end of the day, we're all doing kind of the same thing. And we're all, we have this one weird, very specific interest, which is electronic dance music and DJing and production. And we've all kind of found our way to it in one way or another. But I don't know, man. I really like connecting with people who are in slightly different scenes. And I just feel like that, aside from creativity, I think it does help creativity. But I also just think in a life sense, it makes doing this so much better.
100%. You can't have everyone sound the same.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And you can't have, for me, I'm a massive like I appreciate other genres big time. You know, for me, it's very, very important to listen, understand why it's working, and not hate. Because I think if you start hating on genres and hating on certain stuff, you know, you're going to alienate, like you're going to really kill off some, like just not just your fans, but you're going to kill off your mindset to being accepting for new sounds.
There you go. This is back to evolution again, man. This is the only, yeah, you got to be open.
You know, like for example, yes, I'm not a massive fan of trap music, but it doesn't mean I don't appreciate it. I won't go listen to it at home. That's just, you know, I like melodic dubstep, like what Seven Lions is doing, for example.
Yeah.
Smashed it. Fucking killer. Great producer, great sound, unbelievable. Like he's a great guy. But, you know, there's, you know, with the whole like high shift frequency stuff about who can do the grimiest and nuttiest sound. That is awesome that you can do that, because there's people who really get sucked into that era, and you've got to appreciate how that's been done, how it's been made, why is it doing that, what sonically is it doing. And if you can't accept that and can't appreciate that, you're never going to succeed as a musician, full stop. 1, you have to be very open and not a hater. Even, you know, I was never a massive fan of like heavy metal, you know, but the more I listen to it now, I'm like, I understand so much more about heavy metal than when I was a kid. Because when I was a kid, I was like, I fucking hate this shit. Yeah. But now when I listen to heavy metal, and even if the guys go, rah, 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 I understand the music creativity behind it more than I ever have.
Right.
Because I can relate heavy metal to trap. You know, it's all that kind of, and it's just, instead of having like a down, it's just
right, exactly.
It's all electronic sound being translated into a different style of production.
Exactly,
and
man.
I take everything in, I suck it all in with my ears, and I'm like, okay, I understand. And that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, I love that, man. And then, you know, what comes out is just, you know, that's the whole thing, right? It's like, it's a stream flowing by you, right? And so you can wade around in the stream, you just don't get carried away in it.
Yeah, and it's really affected the way I've been producing my next album.
Well, let's talk about that, man. Yeah, I mean, how are you, especially in quarantine times, like what does writing music look like for you right now?
Dude, it's okay, and this is no offense to the world or to anyone listening in a way. I have been really enjoying my time at home.
Good.
And the reason that is because I've been on the road doing between 30 to 40 flights a month at some points, like just not even being able to be at home and even think about when do I need to make music, because like it's been so stressful that I get home completely exhausted. Takes me about 2 weeks to get into being on the ground, you know, after spending your whole time on a plane. No one really understands what it's like. And don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining here, but at the same time, my body physically has gone through so much stress that physically I've been suffering with a lot of stomach problems and anxiety problems. So I was having loads of panic attacks. And
oh, really?
Yeah, it got to a point where I was like really, really not grounded. I was not grounded. I felt like an electricity plug socket, and there was no ground to it, you know? And I really felt like I was constantly on fire. And when I got home, the flame wouldn't go out. And I'm like, oh shit, like I've been home for 2 weeks. I've got to go back on tour tomorrow. And then that's when I'd start stressing out, and I'd be all like anxious. And, you know, like, I don't want to say goodbye to my cats again. You know what I mean? Like, so for me, this has been absolutely a breath of fresh air in the nicest way possible. I've been at home, I've been producing, I've been waking up when I can and when I want, and just sitting in front of the computer nonstop, just writing my next album. And it's been absolutely so inspiring. And people are saying to me, you're not going insane being at home by yourself for 8 weeks? No effing way. I am loving this right now.
That's great.
Apart from what's going on in the world, this for me has been a massive breath of fresh air. My body physically has calmed down. I've managed to get into I'm not really in a routine. I go to bed at 5, 6 in the morning. That's because I'm up all night making tracks for you guys. But yeah, for me, there's nothing better being able to sit in front of my computer and create orgasm chords. You know, that's what I'm doing. And my next album's fire. I'm so excited of what's coming out so far. Of my speakers here alone, I'm getting goosebumps. And for me to get excited over music these days is very, very difficult. And I'm making shit which is just making me so like everything that I've taken from the road. I'm now so calm. I don't have to look at my alarm clock. I don't have to get up and go to Heathrow Airport and see the same bloody stewardess. And good afternoon, Mr. Bluestone. How are you this week?
Yeah.
I'm great. I know some of the pilots' names. I'm not even joking. It gets to a point where I'm literally seeing the same air crew. Yeah. And I'll give you an example. I actually flew back. I flew to San Francisco for the weekend from London. That's an 11-hour flight. And on that flight, I saw the air crew and they're like, Mr. Bluestone, welcome. This is your seat. And I'm like, getting all comfortable, and my tour manager was sitting in the back, and she basically said, I saw her again, and they one of the guys on the air crew knew who I was because he's a massive Trance fan, and the next following day after I did the show and got on the flight, the same air crew was flying back to London, and they said to me, Mr. Bluestone, how was your show? Oh, it was fantastic, and I started showing them videos and this and that. They're like, how's your manager? And I was like, oh, he's exhausted. He kind of wishes he was up here, like in a bed.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, we're going to upgrade him, but don't say anything. And I'm like,
wow.
What? I was like, these like, I think most of my fees go on flights,
Of
like,
course.
Just the first class seat alone is a couple of grand. And I'm like, okay, so you're going to upgrade my manager? And they're like, yeah, you're cool. So we're going to make his life easier. And then I've got my manager walking into first class during the plane, like taxiing. And it's like, well, that, Michael. And he's like, how did you do that? I was like, I didn't do anything.
I mean, that's unheard of, man. Like,
yeah,
no matter what kind of good treatment you get, like, yeah, those upgrades, they do not part with those easily.
No, but like, that's why big up Virgin Atlantic. It's a super amazing airline. What's up, Virgin? No, they're absolutely incredible. Like, they just upgraded my manager. They gave him a 2 glasses of champagne to put him to sleep.
Man,
best bloody weekend. Did like a massive tour, and I did a 2-show night in San Francisco, like 48-hour show, and it was insane, like unbelievable. And then the weekend after, I think the weekend before, I flew to Australia from London to Dubai to Australia, and then come home again. It took me 5 days to get there and back. And then when I got to Australia, I did Sydney and Melbourne on the same weekend.
Oh, yeah.
So fly from Sydney to Melbourne alone was like 4 or 5 hours. And then to fly back to Dubai, 9 hours or 11 hours. And then from Dubai back to London, another 8 hours, 9 hours. It's just crazy. And I can't wait for Boomjet to come out. And not many people have heard about it, but there's the new Concorde is coming.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's called the Boomjet. And
I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, if you type in Boomjet into Google, it's a new supersonic aircraft which is actually being designed in the US, in Denver, I think.
Oh, wow.
And you'll be able to go from London to New York in 3.5 hours. So they're going to be cutting journey time in half. So you'll be doing sonic boom travel. And the biggest problem that Concorde isn't back, not only because it was super flammable and all the air,
minor problem, yeah.
Yeah. They're now actually creating super gas, which is like going to let the plane travel at sonic speeds with less fuel consumption and less environmental problems, such as a sonic boom. One of the biggest things the biggest problem with the Concorde was that it was so loud that whenever you'd hear a Concorde above your house, and I remember those days, you would hear a Concorde. You could hear the whole ground would shake. It'd be like a fighter plane, because it has the same jet engines in it. And whenever it'd go over the speed of sound, it'd create like a massive boom. And people who were living close by to the ocean would actually hear the sonic boom and it'd shake their house. So now this company have created a sonic boom which actually goes upwards towards the sky rather than downwards towards the ground. So whenever you go, it's really, really clever. So whenever you go over sonic boom, apparently it targets like the upper half of the sky rather than down towards the ground. So you'll hear just instead of a big bang, you'll hear more of a toilet plop.
Right. And am I right? Did I read that you are actually a pilot yourself?
So I've pretty much learned to fly through friends for many years. I never completed my pilot training.
Okay.
Because I just never had time. I was always touring and traveling. But I have flown into international airports with private aircraft, and I've like pretty much, amateur landed aircraft myself.
Yeah.
And it's been super fun, man. Like obviously I've had, and this is, I hope no one from the FAA is listening, but yeah,
I'm pretty sure they're not.
Hopefully not. But yeah, I've obviously had the other pilot behind the controls, making sure I'm not going to do anything stupid. But, I love and appreciate aircraft so much. And I find that just being behind the yoke has just been something that I've had since I was a kid. And I mean, I've been playing flight simulators since I was a child. And till this day, if you put me in an aircraft by myself, I'll land it smooth as butter. So I'm really wanting to complete my logbook and get all the hours in. And I'm massively passionate about aircraft, big time.
That's really interesting, man, because that's, we were just talking a second ago about how touring, which obviously involves aircraft so much, was giving you this anxiety and you were having issues with it.
It's not the aircraft that I'm scared of. I'm not scared of any of that. I love flying. I don't mind turbulence or anything like that. It's the physical anxiety of being in a tube, in a
like a claustrophobia almost.
Well, it's not even the claustrophobia. It's just more that my body physically has spent more time in the air than on the ground, and because of that, my body doesn't feel grounded.
Sure.
I have a lot of people telling me, "Yo, dude, I can't even fly to Spain for the weekend without stressing about going. What do I take in my bag and getting on the plane and getting first on the aircraft and stuff like that." For me, it's about the anxiety of when I'm traveling with loads of people. Not many people know that I've already been on that exact same flight the week before.
Yeah.
And people look at me as if like, oh, just another guy on the plane. But I've been traveling so much that I feel like I'm more of a frequent flyer than anyone else. I've pretty much, I've got an app that's told me that I've been around the world 54 times.
Wow.
54 times, and that's in 5 years.
Yeah, that's
6 years.
Nuts, man.
So I've done 2 to 3 million air miles, and I know. And listen, I'm not complaining. I know there's DJs like Armin and Steve Aoki, for example, who have been traveling way more than I have.
Sure.
And I'm not here to,
But some of those guys, I think, are addicted to it. Like I'm not talking about them specifically, but I think some of the like craziest, busiest DJs in the world, like I think they get off.
It is an addiction.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, it is an addiction. Like my body is so used to going to the airport and so used to getting on a plane that it's like I can tell that my body wants it more than my brain.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I didn't feel grounded. It took me a while to calm down. And whenever I get back from touring, I get my family being like, "You coming round tonight?" I'm like, "Guys, I just landed."
Yeah.
Like, you don't understand what I've been through. Like, I feel like I've been through World War and I've literally just come off the World War and I'm kind of like having a battle. It's like I feel like I've just been through hell and back.
Sure.
And physical tiredness is just like no other. And when people tell me, "Oh, I'm so jealous of your lifestyle," I'm like, don't get me wrong, I'm super thankful and appreciative of what I'm doing as a music producer. But the touring and the body beat that it's given me is just like no other. It's serious. And every other DJ I speak to talks about the same thing. It's not normal. It's not a normal lifestyle. It's not as if I'm working 9 to 5 and I come home and like see my partner or the kids. It's not like that. You don't know when you're ever going to have a proper relationship. You don't know when you're going to see your family again. You don't know whether you're going to celebrate your birthday with your family. And, I had to celebrate my birthday by myself here in isolation.
Right.
And I kind of planned that I'd be home for my birthday with my family for the first time in years.
And now this happens. Yeah.
And then this happens. And then there's me celebrating my birthday by myself again. I think I don't know. Someone's saying that I probably need to celebrate by myself, but yeah.
Well, I mean, do you think things may not go back to normal for a while, but whenever they eventually do, and whenever people start touring again, do you think this hard reset, like, is that going to change your relationship to touring? Do you think you're going to like do it differently?
I'm actually looking forward to going back to touring now. I am, because I've calmed down. My body's physically relaxed. I've been eating well. I've been super creative. I've done so much music that I'm ready to kind of play it out now.
Sure.
So I'm looking forward to it. I'm just making sure that the next tours, I mean, the thing is, I had to cancel 50, 60 plus shows.
Right.
And obviously it's a real bummer for the fans and for myself. But I think this has all happened for a reason, for not just for DJs, but for the whole world. I think everyone needed to kind of just get a slap in the face and be like, appreciate what you have. We're very lucky and fortunate to have a home. There's a lot of people who don't have homes, and people who are financially struggling to a point where they're kicked out their own apartments, and not many people know of that kind of situation. We should be thankful. We're not running through a battlefield, throwing grenades and shouting fire in the hole. Like, we are lucky to have food in the fridge. Yes, there's no eggs and toilet paper. So what? Like, it's just,
right.
We should be fortunate to be thankful that we can stay in the house. And all the people who are complaining that there's nothing to do and they're going insane, plan your future.
Right.
Think about what you can do to change as a person. How can you be more good in the world? How can you affect the world in a better place? How can you do something which will bring more joy to your family, will bring more success and more positivity to yourself? And if there's someone who thinks negative about themselves, how can they bring their negativity to the next place? You know what I'm saying?
It's all perspective, right?
It's all about the perspective of what you want to do in life and where you want to go with it. But I think the world needed to kind of just get a little slap around the face. Well, it's a big slap around the face. Yeah. I mean, sadly, we've been seeing a lot of deaths, which has been super sad, and it's just, it's crazy to be in this era where we're living through this. I never thought in my lifetime I'd live through some sort of Spanish flu-like.
Never, man. Can you imagine if somebody told you a year ago that this was going to happen? You never would have believed them. Yeah,
but no one. I mean, you never know. In maybe in like another generation, there's going to be something else even more deadlier.
Right.
Maybe a COVID disease which literally targets not just adults and people with disability, people with health disabilities. It could be for kids. It could be for people in our age group, and then we're really screwed. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
We've got to really take this as a massive learning curve, and I hope that governments see this as a learning curve and now well prepared for the next time. Masks and all this sort of ventilator stuff, and they need to be more prepared for this sort of shit in the future. No one saw this coming, but now I think this is a learning curve for the planet to realize and understand what we're going through, and hopefully find a solution to prevent this shit from happening in the future.
I mean, amen, man. I hope you're right. I hope people do take it seriously. I hope governments do mature. I mean, if you think about, for our generation, I think every generation has a couple events in each generation that like define that generation and define the way they're sort of characterized historically. And I mean, I think it's undeniable that for our generation, for people living in this time, I mean, this is one of those, maybe the event like that is going to define how this era is looked at.
Yeah.
It's a crazy time, man. But I'm glad to hear you're finding positivity in it. I'm glad to hear
dude, everyone in my family has been super like down and, kind of like, and I'm just lifting everyone. And I feel like I'm kind of like the hope to the family, because my mum has been poor, she's got health issues and she's been stuck at home. Same with my dad. He's been really unwell recently.
I'm sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you. But he's resting as well. And, I'm just kind of protecting them by me not being anywhere near the outside world, because I want people to take an example of that, and don't get me wrong, I have to go buy groceries. I have to drive my car to the shops. But apart from that, I don't go anywhere.
Right.
But I was never really an outgoing person anyway. So whenever I'd come back from tour, it's like I dreamt of staying home.
Right.
Like one day my manager calls me up, he's like, Ilan, everything's been cancelled. And I'm like, fuck, really? Like, I'm thinking about the financial side of thing, but I'm also like, this is a sign. This is me, like, being able to stay home and look after my health and myself. And it's not just about making, moolah and going out there and just kind of doing what I'm doing. It's like, I need to look after myself. And, I've had a burnout before, which really kind of drove me down to a point where I was like, literally like hallucinating. I had a show in Tampa and I got food poisoning in Indonesia. And ever since I had food poisoning in Indonesia, it effed my stomach up. I became lactose intolerant.
Wow.
I had IBS. I can't even have a carrot. Like, that's how bad. My stomach gets really effed up from a carrot, like all the fibers and stuff. It's really, really screwed. And that really kind of punched me in the stomach. I was at a point where I was ill as a dog in bed, hallucinating, and the hallucinating stuff happened in Indonesia after I got stomach poisoning.
Wow.
And my body's been super sensitive to foods ever since. Now I've managed to control my diet. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm eating. But you never know. It just comes around the corner and just hits you like, boom, you're screwed, but that's because I pushed my body to its limit. I pushed myself to a point, and I'm not saying that it's just all from touring. I'm saying that this is one of the main reasons my body's turned into this kind of like downfall is because the lifestyle that I'm living was very unhealthy. And, I used to smoke a shitload of weed as well. And don't get me wrong, I'm a massive fan of the smell of it and what it did to me.
Right.
But I developed massive anxiety and paranoia as well, which came out of the blue when I wasn't even smoking.
Oh, interesting.
Now that the THC is out my system, I feel fantastic. It got to a point where I couldn't stay at home alone.
Wow. That's pretty intense.
It was. Yeah. I was smoking some really strong skunk, and I know that physically brain fucked me for the last 16 years.
Man. Well, man. I think for all of us, like, I think the lesson there is to sort of try to find the silver lining in whatever each individual situation is. Like, obviously it's a hard time for everyone in the world right now, but we will get through it. And I think you're absolutely right on, man. I'm glad to hear for you that there's been a lot of positivity there. And it's interesting hearing you say that, you're not an outgoing person. I feel I relate to that. I'm not an outgoing person. That's not how I feel inside. But I find it interesting that we've sort of found these jobs that end up with sort of us on a stage with a bunch of people looking at us while internally we sort of feel like still that same introverted kid,
No, of course. Yeah. I'm just me. I'm just a massive music fan, and I'm a music believer. And I think I kind of want to get out to the world and show more people my music and hopefully take them on the journey that I'm experiencing, delivering the music to myself.
That's what it is, right? It's like the passion for that, the passion for the music, the connection we feel when we listen to it, when we make it, that's stronger than any like introverted feelings we might have, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
I never thought about it like that. I like that, man. That's beautiful.
Thanks.
Well, hey man, this has been super fun. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Before we wrap it up, is there anything we haven't covered? Anything else you're excited about? Obviously, we mentioned you're working on a new album. Anything else you want to get out there?
So I'm working on 3 projects at the moment. So I've got my Stone Blue, which is my uplifting trance music, which I'm super excited about. And obviously my track with Emma Hewitt did really, really well on the uplifting side of things. I've also started a super group with myself, Emma Hewitt and Mar, and we are literally going to be producing, we've got quite a few tracks already, which is coming under the Elysian alias. And it's kind of like trance meets dance, but without being too commercial. And we just had one track called Moonchild, which was, I think, number 2 on Beatport for quite a few weeks.
Nice.
We are literally that to me, even though kind of made most of the breakdown on that one, I feel that the tracks coming up now, shit all over it. That's me honest. Like, it's a great record. I love it. And I think we all delivered an incredible job on it. But wait till you hear the new ones. They're so much better. So I'm excited for all the fans to hear this one, because I think Moonchild is a fantastic, I'm not slating my own music here, but I think it's a great record. It works well on the dance floor, but it's the least favorite track from the whole upcoming EP.
That's a good sign, I think.
Oh, hell yeah, man. I'm so excited about the next release. It's massive. And then there's me working on my album with obviously my own solo stuff. And the tracks I've been doing there are so fire. It's just been an amazing, 2 years ago today, pretty much, my album Scars came out and it was top 5 around the world. And I've literally been in a massive kind of like, wow, the album's done so well. And it's kind of given me a par that I have to break.
Yeah. How do you follow up a hit, right?
Yeah. And I've pretty much feel like I've shat all over it. So I'm super excited about it because I love my album Scars, don't get me wrong. And I can listen to it in the car and think to myself, okay, I could have done this and this to make it better. And I don't want to sound arrogant or cocky in any way, but I'm so excited about my new music.
I can tell, man. I mean, that's awesome. Is there anything, without giving away too much, like, is there something that you're doing differently this time around, or a way you're thinking about writing music differently?
I think the only thing different is that I'm being more experimental in a sense of like, okay, I've seen what I've done and what I can do, and I'm just trying to be out the box. Obviously, I'm also working with singers like Giuseppe Di Luca, who I've had quite a few number ones with. I'm trying to see what we can do as kind of like a mini duo, little project as well. And obviously I've got Giuseppe singing on a few of my records, but we wanted to do stuff which was kind of more indie rock, more his style.
Yeah.
More Giuseppe being Giuseppe rather than me telling him how to sing and what notes to sing. It's kind of been a really good kind of experimental way of trying to bring indie rock music into trance.
Okay.
And that's what we've been doing. And I've put a few anthem tests on my Instagram. And for those who don't know what anthem test is, I, as a musician, like to tease as much of my music as I can without, obviously the labels hate me for doing it, but I don't care, because at the end of the day, I want to share with my fans what I'm excited about. And I think that's very important, is to keep the fans in the loop with what I'm working on. And I like to be able to share those moments that I have in the studio with Giuseppe or without Giuseppe or with Emma. I like to share what I'm doing and what's making me excited in that moment in time. And for me, in that moment in time, I have to put it on the internet. I have to show my fans and make them feel more connected to that moment in time with what I'm doing.
Right.
So that's why I do all these anthem test stuff. And, I let the fans kind of decide whether they like it or not. And so far, incredible.
Oh, that's great, man. And I think especially in these times when no one's on the road and you're not staying till the end of the night to shake everybody's hand, that's another great way to connect with people, right?
100%, man. Listen, I've done a few Twitch things. I've helped quite a few DJs get on Twitch by showing them what kind of setup they need to do. And, it's been really, really amazing to have the Twitch guys be so supportive of me as well. I got invited to the Twitch headquarters. I got invited to the Apple headquarters. It's been incredible. I got to see that circular building that everyone's talking about. I got to walk around with my phone and it was just taking pictures and stuff. They were super awesome over there. So yeah, I've got to see and do things that I never imagined in my life that I'd be doing. And just being able to stream myself on the internet. On my birthday stream alone, I had 9,000 people watching me blow a cupcake out, which kind of got dropped off outside by my parents, and it's just like, okay, I've got 9,000 people watching me DJ in my house.
Right.
This feels surreal. Like, it made my birthday having my fans there with me. And that was just an amazing experience. I don't even know when I'm going to do my next Twitch. I just got some new equipment today for my next Twitch stream. I've got a green screen and stuff.
Sure.
So I'm going to try and step it up, but I'm also writing my album stuff, which has been taking all my time. But I'm going to have to carry on doing some Twitch because obviously people need to hear the music. But I'm trying to balance that out. I'm taking advantage of the fact that I'm home. You know, I can always go to a club and DJ for people, but, you know, I need to kind of focus on finishing up my album stuff. And then when I can, go on Twitch.
Absolutely, man. Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear you're happy and healthy and evolving, which I think has kind of been the theme of this whole conversation. I'll wrap it up just by asking the same question I ask at the end of each one of these episodes. Just a simple question, kind of the first thing that pops into your head. Just looking for a time in your life, a memory, could be from any time, whether you're a kid or whether it was yesterday, when in a single moment, music really deeply affected you, really had a deep impact on you. And that's meant to be a really broad question, so answer any way you want.
It was when I listened to In Search of Sunrise CD by Tiesto. I think that was one of the first moments that I put his CD in and I was like, what is this? I was like, geez, like this, you know, and don't get me wrong, like you listen to the production from back then, and even though he was so advanced for his time, obviously now you listen to it, you're like, okay, you know, it's kind of very basic, but incredibly crafted. And I think to myself, this was so influential to my life. And not just that, it was also when I listened to, who was it? I think it was a Ocean Lab CD.
Oh, sure.
When I listened to that, I was just like, who are these guys? Like, this is insane. And I was like, this needs to come back. You know what I mean? Like this trance, not the production style, but the emotion that it has needs to come back, and that's what I'm doing.
How old were you when you heard the Tiesto CD, approximately?
Oh, I was probably like, I think it was 2001 or 2. I think I heard it. I think I was like 13.
Yeah. So that's right in those formative years.
14. I think 2004 maybe. I still have the T-shirt. The T-shirt. I went and bought the T-shirt, and I was like, you know, and I see Tiesto Tice. I see him a lot at shows. And like, yo, what up, bro? Like, actually, good to see you. And I'm like, high five, bro. He's a fucking legend, dude. He can play whatever he wants on stage.
100%.
Legend.
Man. Yeah.
Absolute legend, and such a nice guy. Yeah. So I just love, you know, and it was same with Armin. Armin's such a genuinely nice guy, real, truesome dude, you know, and that's what I look up to. I look up to people who are just genuinely nice and super supportive of you know, just music in general.
Yeah, it's man. I think that's like the best way to look at it, is aspire to be like the good people, not the, you know, aspire to be like them in the way that they are good people, not in what they have to show for it, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super inspirational to me too. And this whole talk, man, this has been super fun. I hope you had a good time.
Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, man.
It. Yeah, no worries, mate. Take it easy.
All right. Bye, buddy.
Bye-bye.
That's the show. Shout out to Ilan Bluestone. Great to have you on, man. For everybody out there listening, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Don't forget, go follow Ilan Bluestone. There's a link in the description of this episode where you can keep up to date with all that he's doing, all the brand new music, his new supergroup, Elysian, and everything else you want to know. It's going to be answered in that link. You can also follow me, keep up with me. My name is @Willy Joy on all social media. The show is @BackToBackPod, or you can email me directly, backtobackpod@gmail.com. I also want you to come join the Back to Back Discord. Hit the link in the description for that as well. And with all that said, that is another week in the can. I really like talking to Mr. Bluestone. I think we were both just having a good time playing off of each other, man. Meeting new people, that's what it's all about. Even in quarantine, it's possible. I hope you're doing the same. I hope you're finding some way to be social, to have an outlet safely. Hope you're not going to stir crazy. If you're participating in the states that are starting to open up, just do it safely. Take care of yourself. Social distancing, wear a mask, wash your hands, all of that. Take care of yourself. Take care of the people around around you, and I will talk to you next Tuesday. For Back to Back, this is Willy Joy. Peace.